Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland say that they are on the hunt for a group of criminals this week after they allegedly broke into the home of a young family and then attempted to steal their vehicle while a father and his baby were still inside. The whole thing began one morning last week at the victim's home in the South Brisbane suburb of Sunnybank Hills. It was just after midnight when a baby monitor inside the residence captured a young man breaking in and stealing the family's car keys. After heading back outside, the man met up with his two accomplices and proceeded to try and steal the vehicle. What they apparently didn't know, though, was that one of the victims, Brant Rodriguez, was sleeping inside. In an interview with local media, Brant said that he had taken his 1-year-old son outside to the car to settle him down and to give his wife a bit of a break because she was studying. While sitting in the vehicle, he and the baby boy had dozed off. When he woke up, the three suspects were right in his face. After the initial shock, Brant leaped out of the car and began yelling and screaming at the thieves. He managed to chase them away down the block, though unbelievably, they didn't stay away for long. Brant says that after taking his son inside to safety and calling the police, he could hear his car unlocking over and over again and the lights turning on. The suspects were still trying to take the vehicle even after they'd been discovered. Though the suspects were ultimately unsuccessful, Brant and his family have been left shaken and are understandably worried that they will return again to make another attempt. As they wait for their keys to be replaced, they have resorted to doing the only thing they really can: blocking Brant's car in with another vehicle to make it harder to take. At the time of this recording, police say that they are investigating and have taken fingerprints from the scene. However, so far, none of the suspects have been identified and no arrests have been made. Authorities in China's Zhejiang province say that a thief's year-long plot to rob his former employer was all for nothing after he finally put his intricate plan into action recently, and he ended up getting caught in less than 24 hours. The whole thing started sometime on October 1st when a company owner in the city of Hangzhou called local police to report a burglary. The owner stated that someone had broken into his business and had gotten away with quite the impressive haul: a 50-kilogram, or roughly 110-pound safe. Inside was the equivalent of over $70,000 US. When detectives arrived at the scene to investigate, initially they were stumped. Whoever was responsible had clearly put a lot of thought into the heist. Not only had they disabled the business's security system and cameras, but surveillance footage from nearby roads also didn't appear to offer any clues. Because of how cleanly the crime had been carried out, though, police were convinced that the perpetrator must have been familiar with the company's operations. They already suspected that the thief might be a current or former employee when they stumbled across a vital clue. It was a small boat which had been left on the bank of a local river, a river that the crime scene just happened to back directly onto. After changing their area of focus to the river, detectives found footage of a man who appeared to be paddling this same boat nearby shortly before the heist. Through this and their examination of the company's employee records, they narrowed in on one man, a former worker by the last name of Sheng. Sheng was tracked down to his hometown of Jiangxi province less than 24 hours later, and initially denied any involvement in the crime. However, that changed when the stolen safe was found hidden inside the home of one of his relatives. During a subsequent confession, Sheng reportedly admitted to planning the heist against his former boss for a year. When he finally carried it out, he knew he needed to avoid surveillance cameras on the local roads, so instead of driving directly to the scene, he had parked several kilometers away. From there, he had stolen the small boat that police had discovered and rowed it to the business's office. It apparently took him 3 hours to paddle there. After breaking into the business, Sheng said he used his knowledge of the place to sabotage the security system. Upon taking the safe, he headed back to the boat and paddled another 3 hours back down the river with it before fleeing the area. Unfortunately for Sheng, police figured out the whole boat thing and managed to catch him before he even got the safe open. According to local news sources, if convicted, he faces a sentence of anywhere from 10 years to life in prison. Authorities in the Colombian department of Atlántico say that they have successfully captured an accused murderer a week after he allegedly killed his wife at their home, then attempted to cover up the crime by hiding her body underneath their bed. The case began on the morning of October 15th, when family members of 33-year-old Jennifer Paula Ortega Vega made a heartbreaking discovery inside of her residence in the town of Repelón. After thinking that it was weird that she wasn't home, they started looking around for her, only to find her lifeless body concealed underneath her bed. She had been wrapped in sheets and strangled to death. Almost immediately, attention turned towards Jennifer's husband, Alfonso Ramiro Gomez Mendoza. Though the couple's 2 children were at the home, he was nowhere to be found. After a search effort was launched, Mendoza was found a week later on October 22nd. At the time, he was more than 100 miles away in the city of Santa Marta, in the neighboring department of Magdalena. He was arrested after he apparently showed up at a medical appointment. While the circumstances surrounding the crime remain mostly a mystery at this time, authorities say that they believe Mendoza killed Jennifer during the middle of an argument while they were both under the influence of alcohol. Neighbors apparently told police that the couple fought frequently and suggested that Jennifer was a victim of domestic violence. Some witnesses also told police that they believed Mendoza's relatives had aided him after the killing, helping him to avoid capture while he was on the run. However, this has not been confirmed. Mendoza currently remains in custody and is now awaiting charges. Authorities in the Japanese city of Yokohama say that 1 suspect has been arrested, and they are now searching for at least 2 others following the brutal murder of an elderly man during a terrifying home invasion robbery last week. Police were first notified about the situation on the morning of October 16th, when they received a call from a woman in the city's Aoba ward. The woman explained that the bay window of her neighbor's home looked like it had been broken, and that it had been that way since the previous day. When officers arrived, they found the window just as described, which had a hole in it large enough for a person to climb through. The front door to the place was also unlocked. After venturing inside, police made an awful discovery. The homeowner, 75-year-old Hiroharu Goto, was dead. He had been badly beaten, and his hands and feet had been bound. The house itself showed signs of being ransacked. Drawers and cabinets had been rifled through, shoe prints belonging to more than one person were found, and approximately 200,000 yen, or about $1,300 USD in cash, was missing. Upon reviewing security camera footage in the area, investigators spotted a vehicle of interest in connection with the case. That vehicle was reportedly linked to a 22-year-old man from Chiba Prefecture named Mizuki Takarada. Following his arrest, Takarada apparently admitted to being involved in the robbery and murder, and told police that there were 2 other people that had participated in the crime. He also explained that he and his accomplices had been recruited through an online ad promising high-paying work. This last part is not only disturbing, police say that it's part of a broader investigation they are now carrying out in connection with similar cases. According to local media, over the past couple of months, a number of home invasion robberies with nearly identical MOs have been happening all over the greater Tokyo area, in prefectures including Chiba, Saitama, and Kanagawa, where Yokohama is located. Several arrests have been made in some of those cases, though last week's incident is especially high profile considering the fact that the victim was murdered. However, it appears that authorities are still working to uncover the identities of the people actually responsible for organizing these robberies and recruiting the suspects. Authorities in the Thai capital of Bangkok say that a local man is in custody this week following a dramatic police operation in response to a dangerous multi-vehicle arson, a crime that the suspect reportedly blamed on his addiction to a mobile video game. The whole thing began at around 7 a.m. on October 20th, when police were called to a private parking lot in the city's Pasir Charon district. Concerned citizens had started calling in reports after they said that they had witnessed a man dousing vehicles in gasoline and setting them on fire. When officers arrived, they found 3 cars, a Mitsubishi Expander, a Toyota Vios, and a Chevrolet Optra, all of which had been torched. Thankfully, the fire was able to be put out before it spread further, and no people were injured. However, the vehicles were in rough shape. Based on surveillance footage and witness statements, police were pointed to a 44-year-old local man identified only by the name Pantap. They traveled to a 2-story house belonging to his sister a short distance away to arrest him, but when they arrived, the case took another dramatic turn. Rather than come quietly, the 44-year-old allegedly decided to confront police, who were armed with stun guns, batons, rubber bullets, shields, and other riot gear. After climbing on the roof of the kitchen, Brantham reportedly began brandishing a 3-foot-long machete. One officer was injured when the 44-year-old swung the blade at him, causing him to fall. Police initially employed stun guns to try and bring Brantham down. However, it wasn't until rubber bullets were fired at the 44-year-old that the situation finally came to an end. After falling from the roof himself, Brantham was treated for injuries before being arrested. At the time of this recording, the 44-year-old remains in custody and is now awaiting formal charges. According to police, following his arrest, Brantham blamed his actions on a gaming addiction, telling them that he was addicted to the mobile game Arena of Valor. Specifically, Brantham claimed that the game was causing him severe stress and that this is why he had carried out the arson. Apparently, the 44-year-old was unemployed at the time of the incident. Authorities in northern Greece say that a 28-year-old man has been convicted and sentenced in connection with quite the bizarre case this week after he was caught repeatedly sneaking into his neighbors' homes and properties so that he could sniff their shoes. According to reports, the 28-year-old man in question, who has not been identified by name, was arrested in the early morning hours of October 8th after he was caught in the act by one of the victims at a residence in the town of Sindos, just outside the city of Thessaloniki. The homeowner told police that he had found the 28-year-old in his front yard while he was in the middle of smelling he and his family's shoes, which had been placed there to air out. During court proceedings this week, the 28-year-old told officials that he was extremely embarrassed by his behavior, which he said he was unable to explain. He stressed that he had no intention of harming anyone or breaking the law, but simply felt a compulsion to sniff his neighbor's footwear. While neighbors testified that the 28-year-old had never shown any signs of aggressive behavior during his bizarre early morning visits, they had become something of a pattern as the man had been caught multiple times in the months prior. They had asked the man's family repeatedly to get him to stop, but it seems like he couldn't help himself. This week, the man was handed a 1-month suspended sentence for the series of strange break-ins. He was also ordered to attend therapy sessions. Authorities in the Brazilian state of Rio Grande do Sul say that 4 people are dead this week and at least 9 others are injured after a man allegedly held his own family hostage, an incident that led to a violent standoff with police and only ended after the suspect turned his weapon on himself. According to local media sources, the situation began sometime on the night of October 22nd when police in the municipality of Novo Hamburgo received a report about a dangerous and unsettling incident at a local residence. Callers stated that a 45-year-old man, whose name has so far not been released, was holding his parents captive inside their home. Several other family members were also believed to be inside. Police rushed over to investigate, but things quickly escalated. As soon as they set foot in the front yard of the property, the 45-year-old suspect began shooting at them. He also allegedly fired shots at some of the family members that he was holding hostage. Over the next several hours, authorities tried to negotiate with the shooter and attempted to make contact with him multiple times over the phone. However, he apparently refused to speak with them and shot down at least 2 military drones that were sent in to try and conduct surveillance. More bouts of shooting erupted during the lengthy standoff, during which several police officers were injured and 1 was killed. The situation came to an end the next morning about 9 hours later, though sadly there was no peaceful resolution. The 45-year-old reportedly turned his weapon on himself, and when officers were finally able to enter the residence, they discovered that there were more victims. The man allegedly shot and killed his father and brother, and had also wounded his mother and sister-in-law. The deceased have been identified as 74-year-old Eugenio Crippa, 49-year-old Everton Crippa, and 31-year-old military brigade officer Everton Kirsch Jr. Jr.'s death is all the more tragic, as reports state that he leaves behind a son who is less than 2 months old. In addition to the mother and sister-in-law, 7 members of law enforcement were also wounded during the standoff. They are now receiving treatment for their injuries. At the time of this recording, it appears that the situation is still very much under investigation, and no motive or explanation has been offered behind the 45-year-old suspect's actions. Representatives with England's Suffolk Police have released a major update in the case of a 57-year-old woman this week, announcing that after nearly 3 months, they have finally charged someone in connection with her murder. The investigation began on the morning of July 24th, when a cyclist in the town of Brantham made a disturbing 999 call. The man, along with another community member, had stumbled across an unconscious woman on a section of track road near the local sewage works and a railway line. It was clear that she was seriously injured. When emergency responders arrived, they found the woman, later identified as 57-year-old Anita Rose, in an awful state. She had suffered brutal wounds to her head and face consistent with an attack and was unresponsive. Those weren't the only troubling signs. Though Anita was wearing leggings and running shoes, she only had a bra on the top half of her body. Her phone was also missing, and the leash of her dog, Bruce, was wrapped around her leg. The dog was unharmed. It would later be determined that Anita had left her house that morning around 5 a.m. to take her usual walk with Bruce. They had traveled around 3 miles at the time that she was attacked. The last known surveillance footage captured of Anita showed that she was wearing a pink jacket when she set out on her walk. That jacket is apparently among the items belonging to her that have yet to be recovered. While several arrests have previously been made in connection with the investigation, none of them led to charges until this week. That's when authorities announced that they had taken a 55-year-old man into custody named Roy Barclay and had formally charged him with Anita's murder. At this time, not much has been released about Barclay, other than the fact that he has no fixed address. It's not clear what, if any, connection he had to Anita, and no motive behind the crime has been confirmed. Currently, Barclay remains in custody ahead of further court proceedings. In the meantime, police are still asking for witnesses to come forward. Anyone with information is asked to reach out to Suffolk Police or Crime Stoppers. In a recent interview before the arrest, one of Anita's daughters spoke about the devastating blow the murder has had on her and the rest of her family. Anita left behind a husband, 6 children, and 13 grandchildren. Her daughter also encouraged potential witnesses to please help with the case. She stated in part, quote, "I really want anyone that has any information, however small or insignificant they think it may be, to come forward and speak to the police. We need to find the person that has done this to my mom. They need to face justice. It won't be enough, but they've done it to my mom and they could do it to somebody else, and they're still out there." Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.